the FAST method, Gopi Krishna, and the Institute of Consciousness Research, the ICR. In August of 2017, I was having a tough go of life, and on a whim, I visited the Toronto Yoga Conference, where I found members of a group called the ICR. It's the Institute of Consciousness Research. This was 2 years ago, 2017. The ICR explained and showed in a quite detached, intellectual manner what is the nature of this mysterious Kundalini phenomenon. Various speakers spoke on a wide variety of topics on the subject, from Vedic lore and the Vedic Tantra Shastra roots to physiological techniques and breathing techniques for slingshotting the energy at the bottom of the spine through to the brain and jump-starting this Kundalini experience. I heard talk about Kundalini Syndrome, ways of coping with this madness, the religious slander that is against it. We talked about how the Christian epithet considers this to be a demonic force because it's in the body and it's not coming from God, even though Christians, right? And we even heard supernatural and paranormal explanations of what's going on when this energy is awakened in your body. Eventually, I began to see through the mist that there was a single pioneer who had spearheaded the notion of Kundalini in the West, according to the Institute of Consciousness Research, the ICR. And this man was an Indian Pandit or philosopher who went by the name of Gopi Krishna. I should note that Kundalini does reach back into Vedic lore, and even Yogananda came to the West and taught kriyas for exploring and purifying one's body in ways which do resemble modern Kundalini yoga. He just was using a different language. In my interpretation, it's the same thing. And Yogananda was doing that before Gopi Krishna did. He just wasn't calling it Kundalini. Gopi Krishna was the first one to get that K word and to use it as a phenomenon that was happening to him and that we can all explore as its own phenomenon. Gopi Krishna's concepts of human evolution struck me as uncannily similar to concepts I'd read in works by Timothy Leary, Aleister Crowley, and Robert Anton Wilson. So I was very intrigued. I was really into the occult thing at the time. Gopi Krishna's thesis on the biological basis of religion and genius struck a deep chord with me, making me wonder if perhaps, that was Gopi Krishna's big thesis. Biology as the origin of religion and genius. He had it taken from a Friedrich Nietzschean, a Plato vibe. Even Plato talked about the daemon or the genius that lies within all of us. Somewhere along the way, reading about Gopi Krishna, I really deeply connected the themes with the Timothy Leary idea that the human genome was perhaps engineered by extraterrestrial deities before time began, as they say. That's one of many speculative theories about what's going on here. It's as if the human body is engineered before time, within time, to have this build-up, this evolutionary effect. Seems almost extraterrestrial in nature. Thinking about that factor is an interesting way to hack at what's going on here. But of course, this video is meant to be a scientific and logical explanation. So I just wanted to throw that out there just as a thought. Something that I'm always thinking about. But let's keep to a practical, functional analysis of what all this means. All meandering aside, I found in Gopi Krishna a sensible, rational approach that whetted my own curiosity about the mysterious human nervous plexus system. The lovely intellectuals who created the Institute of Consciousness Research had been following and documenting Gopi Krishna's works since the Psychedelic Renaissance of the 1960s, and even before, although it was the 1960s that really created a bowl in which people could hold and understand the Aquarian narrative, that the world was changing, that, psychedelics were happening at the time, and people were ready for this kind of mystical experience in their own nervous systems, not just seeing God as something outside of themselves, but worshiping the evolution of this intelligent process that is us and is within us. The 60s really held the bowl for it. Even though Gopi Krishna was doing his thing before the 60s. It's a critical part of the nature of Gopi Krishna's tack on Kundalini and his contribution to this science. Now, everyone knows what happened to Gopi Krishna, and everyone who is a Gopi Krishna person. Gopi Krishna's autobiography famously explains his experience facing a harrowing 12-year period on the brink of existential madness and a nearly complete neurological breakdown because he had somehow spontaneously ignited the coiled ancestral energy at the base of his spine and underwent what people are now calling the dreaded Kundalini Syndrome. I'm sure anybody watching this video might have heard of it. I'm going to talk about it here, and I want to kind of make an understanding, a framework for what it is, why we shouldn't be afraid of it, but why we should respect it. The Gopi Krishna advocates at the ICR proceeded to share theories on the meaning, purpose, function, and techniques for attaining this Kundalini thing, which was so frightening but yet so intriguing to all of them. These techniques ranged from mechanical, spontaneous awakenings, like, this slingshot thing that some people would talk about. You engage the bandhas, you engage the breath in the cerebrospinal centers and force it and push it until the energy just jump starts and starts cycling from the spine to the brain. They explain it almost like an electrical current. All an electrical current is a complete circuit. When you flick on a light switch, you connect the current. But when you flick off the light switch, all it does is removes the connection. The circle is ready for the electricity right now. Before you turn on the light switch, the wires are there. But it's only until you jumpstart this phenomenon that the electricity starts flowing from your base to your head. And it's when this energy happens that people start to go a little nutty, to go a little crazy, and to experience this dreaded Kundalini symptom. Kundalini, what's the word? Syndrome, Kundalini Syndrome, and the madness implied there. They explained this sort of slingshot thing as in a spontaneous way, but some people at that conference also talked about more drawn-out, yogic, deliberate, methodical, patient ways of carefully containing and drawing out this fiery ancestral energy in a way which was less explosive, less dramatic, less dangerous than the way Gopi Krishna went about it. This slow yogic process of Kundalini was more of the Yogi Bhajan thing. Yogi Bhajan's legacy towards Kundalini talks about don't just jumpstart it, don't just make the phenomenon happen. Introduce it slowly and have respect for it. Yogi Bhajan considers it a technology that we can engage in our own time. So, here at the Gopi Krishna land, at this particular conference, it was on this, I began to question the Gopi Krishna people right away. Something in my intuition told me that this notion of the spontaneous awakening, I questioned the efficacy of Gopi Krishna's concept. This idea that you could just do this one special technique and that all of your karmas would start to disappear. That's how these people talked about it. They said, make the thing happen, start the button, go through the fiery, crazy brink of madness, and you'll start to be able to get a hold of it. It's like trying to ride a horse. At first you get on it, it's like, whoa, 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 and you got to ride around and you get bucked around for a while. But eventually, once you get on top of it, hold your centers, hold your control, and the horse, the Kundalini, learns that you can wield it and control it. And that was what these people talked about. The only way to learn to get on that horse, you can't, if it's a wild horse with all this untamed energy, you can't just go to it and give it a flower, a little bit of food, and expect that it's going to trust you. You just got to own it. You got to jump on it and spank it and own it, So that was their epithet. And they said once you do this, you can start to contain and control the impulses of the human nervous system from your own center. And this would start to make your karmas disappear. The phenomenon itself would help purify you. It's purity, and you don't even have to work at it. That's kind of their sort of idea. That's how I saw it. For me, I thought of it as like turning on the kitchen sink, the kitchen tap, without having a sink to hold it. Why turn on the water if you have no way to hold or contain the water? That's why I was questioning this whole thing with Gopi Krishna. Now, I'd read Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda before I was at this symposium. So I knew that one simple technique called this Kundalini thing could not eradicate the karmas and the hungry ghosts hidden in every individual's subconscious. How I read it is that if people got this, because there's lots of people with strong, just like intense energy, but like they would grit their teeth and they looked a little intense. A few of the people who were playing with this energy, just a little too intense. And I intuited that each person has genetic memories upon genetic memories of hungry ghosts in their subconscious. What I mean by that is like impulses that are uncontrolled. And awakening this thing would not do it for you. I'm a yoga guy, and I know that you have to work hard at various factors. There's karma yoga, which is getting over the ego. Bhakti yoga, which is being absorbed by lovingness, by feelings of love and devotional joy. If you don't have joy in it, then all you're doing is transmitting this energy. That's where the Sikhism of Yogi Bhajan comes in, but we'll get there. And also Jnana. Those are the three main yogas from the Bhagavad Gita, which I had also read. I knew that without these three things balancing it, if you just have all this energy, you're going to spill it into the hillside with evil acts. Or because you'll have the willpower to channel your energy into whatever you want to do. But how can that go well if a person is not learned through diligent self-realization what is their true will, what is their spiritual purpose, what is the ultimate ergonomical expression of their gene code for the more scientific-minded of us. So, here was these people circling the outer rim of this inner pipe, prodding it, taking sips, and speaking of it with great fear and respect and awe. This Kundalini high energy thing. They were just kind of reeling around the lip, sipping at it, touching it, but not really working towards yoga. It was a real armchair intellectual vibe, you know? It was like these people seemed to want to grasp this power for themselves so that they wouldn't have to work as hard to eliminate the obstructions to their energy and to their will and to their desires. That's what it seemed like to me. I related the Kundalini phenomenon, so far as I understood it through these people, I related it like a psychedelic trip. Once you take the drug, you can't go back. But you learn so much about letting go. You learn so much about unfolding and learning your own nervous system, your own unconscious fears and joys. When you stop running from the ecstasy and, as the Taoists say, just let the lightning flow through you. It's like, this is the power of psychedelic medicines, is that once you take it, if this is what you're doing, you can run from the fear, but if you learn to ride it, again, I find psychedelic medicines are a much more balanced way of dealing with the unconscious genetic powers inside of each human genome. Psychedelics are only daunting until you learn how to transmute the energy creatively, constructively, and spontaneously. That's what psychedelics help us to do, is that like it's this liquid energy that you can't sit back and try to analyze the perfect structure for. You have to be in it. It's just like making love. You can't make a blueprint for how you're going to make love to your lover. You've just got to dive in, and when they give you a signal, you've got to read the signal and you've got to roll with it. That's what I thought this was all about. I thought that the Kundalini thing would just be diving into that tantra of my own spirit, so to say. It would be, once I awake this energy, I would learn how to control my energy better. Jim Morrison made a perfect sentiment for Kundalini through psychedelics when he said, if you look away from the serpent in fear, it will eat you. But if you stare into the abyss and you look confidently into the eyes of the snake, it will lead you to the garden. The Gopi Krishna people insisted that you can only deal with the pressures of playing high-stakes karma poker by playing high-stakes karma poker. You can only work out the muscles. It's like a fireman trying to learn how to hold a fireman's hose without being blown away by the pressure and the force of it. The only way to wield a fireman's hose is just by doing it. You know, you might get, you got to do it. Once you feel like you're ready for it, and all of your firefighter buddies are like, we'll grab the hose. If you can't hold on to it, if you let go of it, we'll find a way to get it and control it. But you have to do it. You have to just go out there and just grip it and just learn how to do it. Just do it. But once you do it and you're like, whoa, and you feel out the pressure, you can control it. And at that point, maybe you are burning more karmas because you've invoked this power. That was my interest with all this. By forcing yourself to let go of your old resistance, of your old ego, of your old way of doing things, by forcing yourself to stop the obstructions to the spinal energy, your brain chemistry changes. That was what the Gopi Krishna people said. Your subtler, cerebrospinal nervous plexus that are hidden like scripts inside of your own DNA. They come into awareness when you invoke them, and you gain the vision of your fullest potential and how to use your fullest potential. It's like there's hidden spheres of intelligence that you can wake up. But, they warned, you may have to suffer the madness that the likes of Gopi Krishna and Friedrich Nietzsche is a perfect example. You might have to face this 12-year or however long of nervous system breakdown and complete madness if you want to take this shortcut to illumination. You'll spill much energy before you can wield the hose or the bucket without spilling it. But, they argued, how will you ever learn to hold a full bucket unless you fill it up all the way and spill it a few times? You know, it's like you're trying to learn to have the muscles to hold a full bucket. And it's like, because that's, you know, say that's your job, you know, you're like somebody who has to carry this bucket from the well uphill to a temple or something like that. You know, you could start and just carry half a water bucket. And when you get your water up there, the people at the temple say, great, that's half of it. That's better than nothing. You didn't spill it. Or right from the beginning, you can just go, fill it up full, learn, get the muscles to do it. And if you spill it on the way, as the Gopi Krishna people said, at least you're going right from your fullest potential right from the start. Why waste time with anything other than your fullest potential? It's enticing, isn't it? My concern, of course, was my own spiritual bank book. I respected the water in the bucket, and I didn't want to spill any of it. How could I treat my sacred cerebrospinal fluid so flippantly? My curiosity was there, but my instincts told me to be patient. Don't just go and look for a teacher who will help me to spank this thing up through the top of my head. And look for another way to channel my Kundalini energy. So I gave up on it in a way. I continued with my life. I turned to heal myself through less compulsive means. All the while I wondered, was I missing out on my destiny? Did I evade the serpent? And, you know, did the serpent eat me? And was I now just being slowly digested in this snake's belly that we could call modern consumerism culture in North America? And all the indulgence and all the TV and media and all this stuff, you know? Like I was always thinking, like, I have such a desire to be a great, powerful sage in myself, you know? I got Giesta, Moon, I'm Indra, and I would love to just go right for the toughest thing in order to get the greatest reward. Was I missing out on that by not invoking this Friedrich Nietzschean Superman high-stakes karma poker? Again, I was interested in Gopi Krishna's take on the biological evolution of the human nervous system. He had had the experience, so he claimed. And his mind showed great clarity. When you look at stuff on YouTube with Gopi Krishna talking, he's a very intelligent fellow. Very controlled, and, you know, I liked that he was a sort of Vedanta scientist. He made room for both the ancient lore of Kundalini, and he also made room for rational reason in his personal worldview. He didn't speak with the frilly hopefulness of New Age hippie gurus, you know, no metaphysics, no chakras, no gemstones, no mantras, no spiritual force coming to you to meet you. It was your own human desire to evolve through your own efforts in a way, you know. So this is what Gopi Krishna's thing is, and I respected it because it wasn't, his language is not really all that. He doesn't get into the chakras get talk about these mystical nodes of the human nervous plexus. He just talks about this very biological phenomenon, which I knew could be, I recognized it as the language of my own heritage in the Western world. The ICR people, the Institute of Consciousness Research, I knew they were onto something with this biological evolution, this biological concept of evolution, that anyone can tap into if given the right knowledge, the right resources. That was an approach that I could understand. Gopi Krishna wanted everybody to have the money, the education, and the nutriment, the food, so that they could open this thing in themselves. That was his main thing. So I was interested in this, but I wanted to know. At the same time that I understood it, Gopi Krishna, because he was so rational, I also knew that it couldn't just be this simple. You couldn't just crack this coconut and all of your karmas will be obliterated for you. I didn't want to trust that this biological mechanism was all that was needed to save the world's ills. I had a spiritual instinct, shall we say. I was still interested in yoga, and what I wanted to do was to find a way in my life where I could diligently and with love and patience cleave off the hungry ghosts in my own subconscious, so that I could live in this consumerist culture and tell people that, you don't need that extra beer. You don't need to be high all the time. You don't need to have constant sensation. We can be happy just with the awe and wonder of holding a stone in our hands. What I was afraid of, really, is that this Kundalini thing, this spinal energy, tapping into it and opening it up, I knew that at the time, even now, I'm still in this consumerist culture. If I had more energy invoked, I would have to put it somewhere. And all I could really put it, there's no Veda culture in today's time. There's a bit of yoga culture, but it costs money, and I don't have the money, If I invoke this Kundalini thing, I couldn't just do yoga all day. I didn't have any way of serving unless I wanted to just go and build homes, invoke this Kundalini energy, and then just go and build homes for people or something. I understood that Kundalini was a desire energy. It was rajasic. It was, again, for the scientifically minded of us, it was simply spinal energy. And I knew that energy had to be channeled and transmuted through yoga, ideally, or through some control of my own human nervous system. And that if I invoked this energy, this biological thing, without a method to slowly and savoringly channel it, I might get into trouble, I might just waste it. I'm a sensual guy. I can be very lusty, just like we all can as humans. But I can control this lustiness, get it out in little moments when I want to. I love food. I'm a very Venusian guy, a Venus guy. I love food. I love having sexual pleasures. I have a girlfriend right now, and it's just, beautiful to be able to slowly and savoringly get those little moments of bliss, and then to go home and to do videos like this, or to do my job and to do these things. These were all sort of more controlled ways for me to transmute this energy. Although it's not perfect, That's why I was afraid that if I had more energy coming in, I wasn't sure if I was in the perfect place in my life where I could transmute this energy coming in. I felt like I would only be delving more into karma and laying on more desire, more impulsive energy, more hungry ghosts in my subconscious.